You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, Chidozie Okafor, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. In this episode 9 of our 10-part mini-series, we spend time talking about the tough conversations that people should have. We go further to talk about grace of the unknown. We discuss how specific actions can be misinterpreted. We pry deeper into Brittany's long-distance relationship and how she makes it work. And I give my thoughts on how I'd love my relationship to operate.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said multiple times, but I guess I want to reiterate for the ladies out there listening. It's really that we should be dating multiple people.
Yeah, do you think?
Or even if you're not, act like it, okay? Because
no,
guys
it's a
are...
front. Don't front. Don't front.
Wait, what's the difference between that and like being quote unquote empathetic, or just being like, oh yeah?
Because like playing a part, empathy is like you're doing it for a means to the end. Like, okay, I have the person that it matters. Okay, they want it. Let me give it to them. When you front, like you still are like when you front that like you got a lot of things going on and you don't. To that person, you may not be doing certain things that you would have done in terms of like, oh, what you doing, da 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 da, what have you. But internally, you still feeling the exact same way. So as long as you feeling the exact same way, it doesn't really matter what you're projecting to the other person. I think it's more important how you feel. And if you're like you sitting at home concerned about what this person's doing, but you're projecting like, oh, I got, I'm about to go here with this, you still feeling the same way, so that doesn't change. So what does it matter?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the revised version of that is to which I've said before to my dad. Even it's like that women at all ages, but especially in this time where, many women around our age are like looking to get married, or they want to have a family, or, they're looking for prospects, honestly. I really, 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 really think it's important to invest in yourself, to invest in your life, to invest in your happiness, to invest in your growth, to invest in and really like becoming who you want to be, regardless of family,
exactly,
or mate or whatever. And if that takes up your time, then you won't be too pressed about a guy that's like not calling you back, or like, oh yeah, he's dating multiple people, because like Chidozie, he is honest. So shout out to y'all for dating those type of guys. But I really do think it's important to just be your biggest advocate and like really use this time, which I actually think is a huge luxury, to not have a family, to be, as focused as I want on my career, to be as focused as I want on my sort of extracurriculars, to be able to go to the gym, to not have to wake up at 6:30 and like worry about taking some kids to school or whatever. I always think about that, because I always think about my life with a family and how busy it's going to be and how much it's going to require of me. And I feel like this phase, or this stage in my life is truly a time of self-investment. So that's how I sort of look at it. And when I think about times in my life where I was like, oh, what is he doing? Or like, what, is he interested or whatever? I just tunnel that energy back into myself.
No, I agree. But I will say this, but I agree. I think it's important to take advantage of these moments of being single and independent, and not have responsibilities to anyone in particular, because you don't, once you lose it, you lose it, right? But from the people that I talk to, there's a whole different feeling of like when you have a kid, and that joy, it's a different level of joy that brings to your life, where some of these things that we talk about, we have the luxury of not doing, is worth it. And me being out of a serious relationship, one of the things that I would say that I appreciate even now more than I probably did before ever in my life is having that companion. Like I think there's a value in that, like just knowing you have a person that's there for you, and vice versa. And it comes with a lot of headache and annoyance and things like that, but you can't get that anywhere else. And so I think there's like a higher level of value that I have as it pertains to that. But I agree with you 100%. And then my advice, like to women, is like, do you live your life, and know know where your boundaries are, know where your limits are in terms of what works for you and doesn't work for you. And guys that want to be around will conform, right? Because that's
Absolutely.
how we built. Like we in y'all's world, we will conform. However, I will say, in addition to that, don't dead something because it's not taking shape immediately the way you want it to take shape or looking the way you want it to look, because sometimes it doesn't mean that it's not working, because it's not, well, you had in your mind it was going to go work this way and work that way and it didn't, so I keep playing. Sometimes those could be some of the most fruitful relationships you have. And if you talk to women that are married, I'm sure that like a lot of them, when they talk about how they met their person and how it worked out, or how that person looks in terms of not necessarily just appearance, but just all the different attributes, it
The
probably wasn't what they
package.
had in their mind. But they made some adjustments. They had a little bit more grace. They had some patience. They let God, because God is undefeated, right? We say we both believers. Like God is undefeated. And so like I struggle with women that are ready to cut things off. And I struggle like understanding them. When they're ready to cut things off, they don't look the way they want it to look. And they're a believer that God knows what's important to you and is going to direct you in a way that you may not see for yourself. And so I just say be patient, know like where your boundaries are, so like you're not compromised in a way that's disrespectful or unhealthy. But that doesn't mean you got to cut off things that just don't look the way you want it to look either.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's sort of, I think it's funny that you made a joke about me, my definition of situationships, but it's related to that in the sense that I have found that grace and really putting yourself in the other person's shoes and understanding their perspective and understanding their conditioning and understanding their family history and understanding their values and all of that doesn't come overnight.
Nah, yeah.
And we are also we're in the information age, right? So we have all of these other influences that we didn't have before, and all this other information that we didn't have before. And everything is sort of happening at a different pace. And there are just so many things going on in our lives that I think it's super important to be understanding of the other person. And truly, truly, like Chidozi said, like set boundaries, express expectations, communicate expectations, in some form or another, negotiate and talk about what it is that you want, what it is that you're optimizing for, which is something. It's a question I really, really love, that I've talked to my dad about a lot. In any situation, I think is really important to ask the person. And you can break it down to whatever level is necessary, but like, what is it that you're optimizing for in this date? What is it that you're optimizing for in this year? Like to really ground yourself and what that other person needs or wants, to honestly understand where they are, and then you doing the same thing. Because I also think that tension comes from not understanding our priorities and not understanding our prerogatives, and just sort of operating in this selfish or self-centered or whatever mind frame of like, oh, this is my timeline and this is what I want and this is what's important to me, and do you fit that bill? And reality is the guy's like, no,
But he can
because
grow
this
into
is,
that. You don't know. Not
yeah,
but like the person doesn't know.
exactly. But it's about talking about those things. It's about understanding, like, oh, okay, this is where he is. This is where he has to grow. This is where I am. This is where I have to grow. This is what I'm optimizing for. This is what he is optimizing for. And really coming to a central point of like understanding, which I really do think is possible. I don't think it's possible overnight. I do think it requires patience. And sometimes it's like, I mean, I also, and I'm speaking from my perspective of dating long distance for over a year, which is very, very
You're talking
challenging.
about currently.
Yeah.
So can I ask you
Uh,
a question real quick?
sure.
So this person, I don't know if you're gonna get in trouble or not. So,
Uh oh.
Is this person your boyfriend or y'all just
Yeah.
dating?
No, it's my boyfriend.
Oh, so why don't you just say that? Because you were like, I'm dating, and I'm like, is this your dude, or is this like, is this?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to like our earlier conversations around like what are we doing and situationships and moving past that and like committing to someone with intention of
So
marrying.
y'all have y'all have moved past that.
So we have spent a lot of time talking about intentions and like what we want now in whatever time frame that was last year, whatever. And like what we want in the future. And I think we're finally getting to a space where it's like, okay, we're willing to sacrifice or willing to compromise. And number one, even be in the same space. And that kind of goes back to the point I was making about optimizing. Like, I live in New York City. I really like living in New York City a lot. I think it's a great place to be. I've really enjoyed growing my career here. I wasn't in a place where I was willing to optimize for a relationship over my career and my time in New York. And he wasn't in a place where he was able to optimize or to change his location and build a career in New York. So we individually decided to continue dating, continue growing, continue getting to know each other, but at opposite ends of the US. But it's now to a point where like, okay, like we understand that we want more. We've talked about marriage.
Who's moving?
Uh oh my gosh.
That's what the people want to know. Who's moving?
I'm thinking about moving.
Look at you. All right. Um. How long have y'all been official?
That's a good question. I mean, again, it kind of goes back to the point of like me not being I don't have a clear date for you. We just talked about this like 2 days ago. It's like, "Oh, well, when do we want to call our anniversary?"
So,
Um
at what point would you have been upset if you knew he was talking to someone else?
oh, I mean, I already know we've been pretty good at being upfront about like, oh yeah, I talked to this girl at this point, or I saw my ex, or whatever. Like we've talked about that.
So you just
So
talking,
I
like you just
wouldn't.
talking to this guy that you realize the timing is not right, but there's interest, and y'all are maintaining whatever uh, level of interest. You're not deading it because of it, but you just, hey, we're gonna keep this here. I'm not gonna change what
Exactly.
I'm doing. You're not gonna change it, and then you just telling Joe. He's just no, I don't want you to speak for him. He's just telling you about his dates with these other people,
No, he
and
did
you like.
not just tell me.
So then, how does it come? So then, okay, but you just knew he was doing it.
No, I mean, we would essentially, because I like honesty and I like truth and I push for vulnerability at all times. I just ask. I just
What'd you ask?
literally ask, like, so no, not even because it's not a. I don't. I mean, he doesn't really have a lot of time to date like that. But I'm like, so when is the last time you like hung out with the chick? And I'll just ask him randomly. Like it doesn't. There's no like rhyme or reason, but I
I'm
just
sure
kind of
there's
check
a
in.
I'm sure there's a rhyme or reason if you thought about it, but
I mean, maybe there's a trigger, but I can't think of like the specific
all
trigger
right.
of
And
me.
so, when was the last time you asked him that question?
A few days ago.
And his answer was nobody. I've been chilling.
No, it was like it was basically like, oh yeah, last year
Okay, yeah.
sometime in the
Okay.
summer or
So,
something.
and you asked him 2 days ago or 2 or 3 days ago,
A couple of days ago, yeah.
but you pretty much his girlfriend at that point, right?
Yeah, but not last summer. So again, it's like me checking in, being like, okay, let me like I don't get into the formalities like, okay, I'm your girlfriend now. Tell me exactly what's been going on for
No,
the
no. I
last
guess
year.
I guess my point, I'm trying to understand, is like, you were asking just for you. I guess at this point, your curiosity about when he stopped kind of talking to people in a position where you guys are together, right?
Hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out in a period of time before you knew that was your position, right?
In a
Had you
period of time before I knew that my
that was just like, so
position
let's say
girlfriend.
I don't know when you guys made that decision, but let's say you made it in November, right? That y'all gonna be
Sure.
like,
Mhm.
right? And so, had you asked that question in October, and he was like, "Well, he's honest, like, well, last week, such and such, we hung out for this," you wouldn't have felt some kind of way.
Uh, I think I did ask around that time. I probably asked like every 4 or 5 months.
And then,
And I have like had a reaction. That's true. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that's natural. Like, I'm asking because I want to know the truth, even if it's not the truth that I want to hear.
and what does that
Because,
truth do for you? So then what? So let's say you asked in October. He's like, "Well, I hung up with someone last week. We just got to know each other. We're just kicking it."
well, to me, it's just a way to be honest and vulnerable. Like, I think that I don't want, so that's one part. The other part is like, I don't want any surprises or somebody to like tell me about
Something.
the person
No, that's
that
fair.
I'm dating. Like
That's
that
fair.
sounds ridiculous to me. So I mean that's the second reason I think it's super important to represent the person, your mate, well, and part of that is being honest, because what do I look like for what as a mate to a man, for someone to come up to him and be like, "Oh yeah, your girlfriend like went out with my homeboy."
But
Like,
y'all, but y'all, but y'all not together at that point, right?
yeah, but people feel a way about that. That's just human nature. Yeah, I mean, it's a small world, Chidozi. We know mutual people, so
No, I guess I'm just trying to figure out like how you process that, and on his end, like, did he ever ask? Cause I feel like guys don't really ask that question, but he might have,
he asked me. Yeah,
and how he would have
he,
responded if you like, "Yo, yeah, I had coffee, coffee date, in Bed-Stuy, and
yeah. Yeah, we went out for coffee.
and his response was
Uh,
like, "Oh, cool, cool, cool. I hope it went
no, it wasn't cool, cool,
well."
cool. It was just like, oh, okay.
And I'm not
Like,
saying this as like like, oh, you shouldn't have these conversations. Like, I think it's important to. I think these are healthy conversations to have. I just don't think everybody's in a mental state to have them like in a healthy and effective manner. Um, and so that's why I was just
I
curious to try to understand like what was the response to the answers that you guys talked about. Obviously, it wasn't one that like um, it was detrimental because you guys are together now. But in addition to that, what I don't know how you guys move. I'm just asking the questions that I feel like people may want to know. Like, had it been like a sex thing, like was it just like, oh, when's the last time you hung out with someone, or was like when's the last time you had sex with someone, or did y'all have an understanding of we're not like what are the negotiations when doing
right.
this? Because I'm also very anti like long distance, and so if I was to
Mm,
do long distance, I would want to know like how do you make it work?
yeah, I think it's important to negotiate slash agree and align on those expectations and boundaries around like sex or relations, being intimate, and intimacy ranges. It's not just
Yeah,
sex.
I agree. I agree.
So we have had that conversation in the past and agreed to basically do our own things. um so when I asked most recently, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, who have you had sex with? But I have asked that in the past. I have definitely been like, okay, well, when is the last time that you had sex? Because I also think that if this is serious and you love me and you want to pursue something more serious and you have the intention for more, then I'm the type of person that wants to be very, very upfront about any of that. Like, I guess I just don't really shy away from that type of or that level of honesty, because it doesn't really do anything but create more space for trust and vulnerability. But it has to come from a place of trust. So I have asked that in the past. We have talked about other people that we have like messed around with in the past. But we've also negotiated and agreed and aligned on sort of the boundaries and expectations of like dating each other long distance.
So yeah, but I feel like I feel, I feel like the way you guys are talking about it, it seems like it was more serious than the way you kind of described it in the sense
What's
that
more serious? What do you
like
mean?
I feel like the way I received your description of it was like, hey, we there was a mutual interest. Neither one of us is trying to make this like long distance stuff work. So we're gonna do us, and I'm gonna keep, we'll keep in contact, keep the flame
Oh no,
alive. But it seems like y'all were like, y'all might not have
no,
been
we
official, but
decided.
y'all was like dating. Y'all was like
Yeah,
together.
we decided to date long distance. Like that was also something we agreed and aligned on.
Like
It
so
wasn't
how
like,
long
oh,
ago did y'all make that decision?
hold on, but it wasn't like, oh, I'll see you when I see you.
Yeah,
Like it was.
which is what I received when you said.
Oh no, 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 no. It wasn't. I see you. I'll see you when I see you. We've been doing long distance for like almost 3 years, over 3 years, I guess, at this point. But
But more recently he's became your boyfriend.
yeah, but the other thing about this is I didn't we never dated in the same place. So I met him like right when I was leaving. I used to live in the Bay, and I met him right before I was leaving the Bay. So I mean, it was built from long distance. It's always sort of been that way when we've been forced to like get to know each other from afar, and we've spent like weeks together at certain times. So building something from long distance is also a different use case, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was just trying to understand it. So it seems like you guys, at least for the last, I guess, so like it seems like for the last 3 years or so. I don't know if it's on and off or what have you. Y'all have been like just dating intentionally long distance
The intention has grown. The alignment has grown
over
uh,
time.
over time. Like it wasn't
Okay.
immediately like, oh yeah, we definitely want to like get married. We definitely want to be in a relationship. We definitely want to be in the same space. It wasn't like that.
See,
It
that's
was mostly.
interesting because hearing that, right? I feel like I would feel some kind of way if and I get like asked the questions that you need to ask to like I'm the one that say, hey, you want to put someone in a position that they have to lie to you if they're gonna lie, but like if y'all are like kind of together pretty much, uh, like why are you asking me about what am I doing? I already told you like I'm here for you. Like what I feel like you almost like I don't know. I think I would feel some kind of way if someone was repeatedly asking me, my involvement with other people if we are together, and I am assuming y'all's together means like we are for us, but maybe I negotiated some terms.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like we don't live in the same space. So, I mean, I don't think he did either. I guess I should double click on this with but I don't think that me asking him about that ever was like pestering. But I also come from a position, and this is just my honest sort of thoughts on men. I think men are like, to your point, men are always trying to have sex. Men are always gonna have women that are like, "Oh, what's up?" Or they're gonna be like, "Hey, girl, what's up?" So I'm not oblivious to that. We're not in a relationship at that point. We're not married. So
October, y'all not in a relationship?
I'm saying in general, like in the past, like over a year ago, what do I just expect that he's not like nobody's hitting him up or like he
Oh yeah, yeah,
isn't.
no, I get that. I was just assuming like because you said we're in March. You said you asked about if he's kicked it with someone in October, and so
But I ask every like 6 months. Like this is I haven't just started asking, and
no,
I asked
no,
this from the
that's my
beginning.
point. And so like you're doing this, you have this behavior that, from your perspective, like I'm consistent in this. I'm consistent in me asking this question every periodic, every period of, couple few months or whatever. And in the same lane, you're like, our understanding of what we're doing and commitment to each other has grown, right? To the point where at some point you guys are like, we're pretty much together. And so if I'm like, if we're growing, right, and I'm getting this question when like we're at a point where we've made some commitments to each other about what we're doing, I'm like, why are you still asking me this question? I've commit.
Sometimes you just gotta check in, Chidozi. You never know.
Yeah. Well, no, so this is where like, as a guy, this is where I'm like, well, you're right. The reality is you never know. However, the way that I think about it, that a guy would think about it, is that if he wanted, if he's serious about what you are doing with, like, what you guys are doing, right? He's not gonna do anything to put that in jeopardy. That's my thought. If
Mm-hmm.
he is putting it in jeopardy, it means that he either thinks he can get away with it, and he's not as serious about what you guys are doing. And if you're still around, if you ask the question, him telling you the truth, I'm sure is gonna put it can cause an issue. So he's probably gonna lie about it. And so I'm not saying your guy did it. So I'm just saying, like, either way, you like, if I'm thinking about it, like, you're not gonna get the answer you want, because if he's like, yeah, I know we have this agreement, but I met a girl, and I got needs. I'm a guy, and so I did it. I'm sure you're not gonna be like, well, I understand. You're gonna be like, what?
Yeah, but
Towards the
isn't
latter part of it, right? And so to me, it's like, well, either he's in it for the right reasons and handling his business, or he's messing around and he's gonna lie about it. Like, in either case, you're not getting the answer you want. And yeah, so I'm just curious why ask, but
yeah, I hear you, but I guess that makes it more black and white than maybe it actually is. And I guess I'm hesitant in saying this because I do think it's possible to have a evolving consistent conversation around, even like I said, there are ranges of intimacy,
true,
to say, oh yeah, I my ex hit me up and we went out. Like, that is something that I think is interesting and we should talk about openly.
true,
That's the type of conversation that I would expect to come up if I'm asking you this question, even if we're in a relationship or not, because I don't get to spend every day with you and I don't know what every single day is like with you. And I know that we're both busy and we don't always get to check in on that sort of thing. So for me, it's like, yeah, like, I understand that shit happens. Like, it literally happens all the time where somebody's like, oh, I haven't seen this person in so long. I'm in town. Let me hit them up. And then you see them and it's like, oh. And in that moment, you might not be comfortable telling the person that you're in a relationship with. And I think this is especially true for people in general, but men, in my experience, to not be like, oh, I'm going to tell her this immediately. But if she asks me, sure, I'll tell her later. Once you've processed it, once you have like stepped away from the feelings or whatever that comes from that. And I think that's something to talk about. Like, I don't think I think it happens, especially when you're long distance. But it also, especially as we live in this like a very interconnected world of like social media, and like there are more people, I feel like, traveling more than ever. So that's sort of my thinking on it.
no, I get it, I think I was just stuck on the fact that, like, based off what you said, I would assume that not much in, like, the progression of y'all's relationship has changed in the last 7 months. It could have, but, like, since, like, November of last year to March of this year, I figure y'all kind of in the same bracket of where y'all was in terms of understanding, negotiation, what have you, right?
Yeah, I think that
And
so
so if that
much can
question
happen
comes
in
up
that.
when we're at this point that we are now, where we damn near together, official, I'm just like, do you not trust me?
Yeah, I mean,
That's just me.
luckily he didn't have that reaction,
Yeah,
but
we,
I could
yeah,
see that. I could see that. I could definitely see that being a thing.
yeah. That's all I was trying to, like, understand. Is like, I would be like, damn girl, I told you I'm yours. But I think, let me add color. I think it also, like, has to do with how I see relationships too. So, um, I know for me, had I told someone, like, hey, this is what we're doing, that's all I'm doing. Like, I'm a person, like, when I'm in, I'm all the
You're
way
all
in.
in.
And so that's probably, like, why I was like, I would feel this way, because I wouldn't say that or agree to that unless I knew I was in it. And so if I
Right.
was then in it, knowing how much I'm investing in it at that point, to get
Like,
a
how
question
you
like that, I would kind of feel some kind of way, like, and I would hope over time I've showed you that, like, I'm a person of my word, and and all these things, and so you're still asking me like, what's going on? you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes total sense. But you're also against long distance, and long distance adds a whole nother layer of uncertainty and lack of visibility.
True. That's why I don't do
That
it.
you just
But
have to like process and talk about. Like literally, you just have to talk about it
no, yeah,
because you
true.
don't see that person.
I mean, that's why I don't do it. But long distance, I think long distance magnifies the situation or like those type of things. But like at the end of the day, like you're not with your person 100% of the time, and so you never like someone that wants to do something is going to do something. But I understand that like being long distance like kind of exacerbates that, you know, that feeling.
Yeah, that's for sure, and I'm a 100% witness of that. Uh, it's just the truth. I mean, it's hard. Long distance is not for the
Faint of
weary.
heart. It's just a lot. Like I actually appreciate the approach. I don't think that everybody is set up for that. Like in a perfect world, um, I would love to like meet people, get to know them with the like caveat that like something romantic could happen. Like, cause like I'm grown, I'm not trying to make more friends. I mean, I'm new to this city in Austin, so I'm trying to make friends. But like generally speaking, I'm not trying to just make friends. And so like female friends, and so I would love to meet people and understanding like get to know them that could be a potential, and just like see how we vibe because I think there's something to be said about seeing people like in the context of like that's who they are. Like they're not doing it because we together. That's just their general nature, right?
Mhm.
And understand that's who they are to then be attracted to that. Like this person didn't do this thing because they want to win me over or appease me. They did it because that's just how they operate. And I want to see like those are the things that I try to see. But I also get like in this day and age like it's hard to like see those things and get to know people on those levels without having some of these additional layers of context because for me if I let's say I met someone and we kind of vibing we kick it we doing our thing but we kick it and we're growing and learning right kind of indirectly right because I think people can see and witness a lot about how people act without like it being directly involved with you. I would
Mhm.
probably be like whenever we got and then I was like okay I've seen a lot in this person. I see how they move. I see how they care for their family in just general context. This is a person that I would want to be associated with, right? I need in my life. Um, let's see where this could go. I probably like propose in like months, like because I don't see what I need to see, and knowing that's their
Mm.
character, right? I know we get along. I know what your character is in general. Now we just see do we fit in terms of like life, right? That don't
Yeah.
take a lot of time to see. But like when you don't know why the person is doing it, and some women and guys too are doing things because they want to be married or they want this, you don't know like what's going to change sometimes. What's their true character and what's them doing it for like you said, immediate gratification. And so like to me, it's hard to like delineate between the two. I think sometimes long distance can help that because like you really got to be committed to making that work. And you're limited, and it forces you to talk through a lot of things that you may not normally talk through because that's all you got. And so it's tough understanding that we are in a world where things are like you said interconnected, moving quickly, but like the way relationships like people need to feel about relationship is never going to change no matter how technology uh, goes, and it only can go at a certain pace.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. But I think what you're saying really speaks to the fact of like we all need to know ourselves and we
Yeah,
need to be self-aware of who we are, how we are, what we want, what we don't want, setting those boundaries, setting those expectations, and just being very clear and communicative with the person that we are dating because how else are they going to get to know you? There's no other way than to be straightforward, to be honest, to be vulnerable, and to just let them know what it is. And if you're long distance like me, it's like more communication, more talking, more intention, because it is difficult to get to know someone without all of those contextual clues, seeing them with their families all the time, seeing them
Yeah.
with their friends all the time. So yeah,
I mean,
no,
big ups to you. I'm not there in my development. I need to see. Like, I need to. Part of what you're saying, and some guys have said this to me as well. There's a level of faith you have to have, right? Like, and it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to look exactly the way you want it to look, but you have, whether it's faith in that person's character, who they are, that's going to pan out in a way that's like in line with what you want. But big ups. I gotta see. I gotta trust my eyes with it, and so I'm not there yet, but I commend people that have done it, and I'm starting to try to be more open about it, but like at an arm's length. But it's I understand it's tough, so I commend people that. What'd you say?
I said Austin is cool for you. I mean, Houston is cool for you, but anything outside of that,
even Houston's work. I mean, it's still like work. I mean, it's more convenient. Like, you're going across the country, right?
yeah,
And so it's more convenient, but like getting on the road for 2 hours, not 2.5, 5 hours every weekend. That's still a commitment. That's time. That's not even like quality time with you. That's just like you
it's
paying to
just
play.
logistics.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
and so like it's still work. I don't want to demean or someone doing that kind of commute. It ain't the flight across the country and time zones, but it's still like all that stuff when you don't have the luxury of like, even if someone's in the same city and lives far away, like if you don't have the luxury of like being able to see that person on a whim conveniently, it's hard because it requires more attention and timing and planning and in your case, financing, because like you have to pay for them flights. They ain't cheap. And so you kind of have to like be intentional about those other investments, beyond just the actual time together. Speaking of time, that's all the time we have, and I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank everyone that has been listening and spending their time with us today. Join us for our last episode 10 of our 10-part miniseries that also drops today, where we talk about the trade-offs people make, dating, women with children, the things that I've learned about myself, and we conclude what's been a great conversation over the past few weeks. Thank you again for listening. Subscribe to us at I Think I Love My Wife podcast on all major platforms. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Think Love Wife. Tell your friends, leave a review. And until next time, I hope the conversation keeps going.